And later on, even from those circus days, he had two people working with him 30 years later,
Wow.
and then passed on to their son. It sort of stayed as a family thing almost. Quite
So,
amazing.
how many people did you have in your family kind of growing up? Who were the
As we
key
grew up,
members?
well, we were just a family of, I was the second son, my brother, my older brother. Then I had a little sister born in 1946, 48. And then a little boy born in 1939, my brother Gary. They never got that involvement that I did because I started off, attached to him sort of thing. And I was his little boy. I found that if I just hung around, something was always in the air. For instance, a circus was a surprise because he would just come in and say, family, look, we're going into circus. We're starting next month. It'll be at wherever. We're moving up to so and so. Our new address will be. Everything was organized. Absolutely amazing. We'd all go, you yippee. So that was a sort of surprising atmosphere that I lived in.
But this was during the Second World War.
It was.
So I mean, how when most people are batten down the hatches and
Mm,
people are
mm,
in scarce times, rationing and stuff. How were you able to kind of bring? Because you're supposed to be the fun,
yeah.
right? And obviously, a lot of people have suffered. And did you suffer much during the war, or were you kind of still
I
caught up in the fun
was,
fair?
well, when London really got hot, the phony war finished, bombing started in London, circus closed, and it closed very quickly in late January. I think that's when the bombing started. And we sort of got out of town fast. All of our equipment was stored, our fairground equipment, and everything was dispersed. We had to then make plans to as to what we were going to do with ourselves. My father's first thoughts were to go back to where I was born, take all his equipment back there across the country roads, and there were country roads too. They're about as wide as this room, maybe, not even that. But and get it all in one place, and then see what he could do from there. See what happened. Well, we got down to back to Ilfracombe. He went straight to the council and said, "I'm back in town. I'm a local boy, more or less. I would like to park all my fairground equipment. Where can I put it?" They said, "Put it on the pier. On the pier, you can store it there." Because all sort of the holiday side of things was not that wasn't working. So he put his stuff on the pier and then said, "Could I please open some of the rides?" And they said, "I can't see why not." And so he did. He built it up on the pier, and he had a little fair which was permanent in Ilfracombe for ages
Wow.
on the pier. And while that was happening, he noticed that two of the theatres in town, the only two theatres there were, because Ilfracombe was a Victorian holiday town, and there was all that sort of amenity was there, bandstands and theatres and all sorts. So he took the only two theatres, and he got a friend of his, an old friend, who was the uncle of Peter Sellers, the famous film actor, and he said, "Would you like?" Who had just finished work at the Garrick Theatre, I think it was in London, where he was manager, retired as being too old. And "Would you like a job as a manager of my theatres in Devon?" He said, "I'd love to." He was a good old Jewish boy, and he was wonderful. He used to have the black coat and the Astrakhan collar, the Derby hat, he looked, and the cigar.
Look the part.
Absolutely looked the part. He was
Wow.
a delightful man.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
now you've set up on this pier and people are starting to come.
Oh, people, he just opened on Saturday, or whatever he could. And he didn't do it himself, once again. He got family members who he trusted and who were able to run the little fair. He got them to do it. He was nothing to do with it. He would be out looking, foraging for something else. So he thought, I'll get the theatres going. So Alf Humphreys, who was our manager, he was from a theatrical family, and So he said, leave it to me. And they got uh, stock um, theatre, which was like you get troops who could do a series of plays over a month. And you would employ them, and they would put all the different plays on over the month and then move on to another theatre. A very fine way of entertaining. And so he did just that. He got a theatrical group in and did some stocks who were doing stock theatre. And I had the pleasure of operating the one of the floodlights there when the when I was allowed to, because I was only about 9 years old, so it was somebody else. One of the big arc lamps, that they used to use, because they would put variety shows um, during on the Saturday or something like that. Ilfracombe at that time was full of entertainers because entertainment was dead in London, so it was people in uniform, a lot of them, but they were famous entertainers, and he would use them. Um, they weren't doing much, it was nothing happening. So anyway, he got the theatres going, and that was fine. And then, quite amazingly, his manager called him in London and said, Stan, I've got some important news for you. He said, 40,000 American troops have just arrived outside the town. They were there for the D-Day preparation. And their entertainment officer has just been to see me, and he wants everything we've got.
Wow.
He said they will just take every seat, doesn't matter how much we charge, they'll just take every seat for every performance in advance.
That must be his dream come true, right?
So that's it. Dear old Alf, he said, I've never had it like this before. It was always hard work for him.